what have been some of the big disservices that the business world has done to women specifically?
The biggest disservice, I would say, is really putting the expectations and pressure on wake up at 5 a.m. and do a cold plunge, and I'm going to do this, and like this is you're going to do your morning rituals, and boom, 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 right? Men's hormonal rhythm is vastly different than a woman's, and we are creators. And that requires more downtime. That requires more going within. That requires more of that space and nature, being able to slow down and accessing that other realm of imagination.
Welcome to Unreasonable Autonomy. My name is Sarah Grace. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs and innovators who refuse to settle. Here we dive deep into raw, real conversations with boundary pushers who have pursued seemingly impossible ideas and yet have achieved unreasonable results, whether that's in their faith, relationships, health, politics, yes, even business. All of those conversations are happening right here, right now. So let's buckle up because this isn't about playing it safe. Unreasonable ideas, unstoppable results. Let's go. Guys, this may be my most favorite episode ever of all time. Okay, Mandy Keene is here on the podcast. Mandy Keene is a globally respected master coach and the author of Understanding Personality, a groundbreaking book that helps readers decode human behavior and build powerful, heart-led relationships in both business and life. She partnered with her lifelong friend, Russell Brunson, to co-create the world's leading software that integrates the top personality assessments into one powerful platform. This is going to be an interview unlike anything else. Let's go. You guys, welcome back to the Unreasonable Autonomy podcast. Okay, special newsflash. Today's episode is going to be different than any other episode you have ever heard on this feed. Let me first give a huge welcome to the amazing Mandy Keene in the room. Hi, Mandy.
Hi, Sarah. So happy to be here.
This is going to be so good, you guys. And I got to say, the next, 60 to 90 minutes are going to be incredibly selfish because I actually get to be coached by this incredible spirit, Mandy Keene. And I have to say, she has been on my bucket list to first just become friends with, right? I just want to become friends with her. But something that is so amazing about you, Mandy, in how I entered your world is I first saw you in the ClickFunnels world, and she's rubbing shoulders with people that I admire. And you had dominated through this industry of like understand.me, and we'll put, the refreshed link at the bottom of the show notes. But everything that I saw is you were so focused on how do I unlock this unique, special power of you. And you just look at these people directly and be like, you are interesting. You have something to offer. I saw you interact at Funnel Hacking Live, and I've seen you do webinars and all this kind of stuff. And like somehow you're able to get out of your own way and just look at someone and be like, you are interesting. And I want to dig all of it out of you. Right? It's such a gift. It is such a gift. So for those who do not know who you are, what you do, they've heard your bio, they can look at the links, all that kind of stuff. But what's the 3 to 4 minute journey that got you from, a sweet kid and doing all the things to now really a standard of helping entrepreneurs and women and these incredible individuals who feel called to impact the world, unlock who they really are and actually accomplish those things that they're aiming towards? What's your story?
Thank you, Sarah. Well, first off, it's an honor to be here with you. I love and respect and adore you and the work that you're doing. You ask the juiciest questions, and I that you're able to do that because you're so brave and authentic. And thank you for seeing me. Thank you for acknowledging that. It really does mean a lot, and I receive it. And I love humans. I love people, even the ones that some people don't like, I'm like, oh, but why are they mean? Why are they crotchety? Why do they have that edge? What happened? What's the backstory? That's why I love those movies that, have the backstory of the villain. And then you're like, oh, I understand why she became the Wicked Witch, or I understand why she was the evil queen or the Joker, right? So I always like to give credit to my mama because my mama is, some people were raised religiously. I was raised by a mother who was very driven, ambitious entrepreneur, she was the first female stockbroker in the state of Idaho. Yeah, she's a badass. And we had like the equivalent of the Barnes and Noble section of self-help and personal development at home. And so she was always listening to tapes and always like quizzing me. And, I was a kid that was like, I want to listen to music, and I don't want to listen to the talking tape. Like boring.
The talking tape. Oh my God.
Like, can we listen to music? I want to listen to talk. But then one day, and my mom bought and sold real estate, like she bought and flipped houses that we lived in. So I don't know if you were ever the new kid, but being the new kid in junior high is like
hell on earth.
Oh my God. It's like, it's terrible. So I was the new kid a lot and so awkward and shy. And my mom knew that I struggled a lot, and she brought home these VHS tapes of this man. And she said, watch him. He'll help you be popular. And I didn't care about being popular. I just wanted friends, and it was Tony Robbins. And finally, she found someone who was interesting to watch, because like a lot of the self-help were kind of like older, boring, dry people, right? And Tony was fun, and he was funny, and he was captivating. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is interesting. And he was talking about building rapport. And I was in the 7th grade, and I started learning from him, and I started applying what he was teaching. And I was like, holy cow, this works. And I started making friends. And then I started drinking the Kool-Aid. I was like, Tony Robbins. And so I became this big Tony Robbins nerd. And then for high school graduation, my mom bought me a ticket to go to his seminar. And then I really became hooked. And I went to his Unleash the Power Within Firewalk seminar at 18. I was enrolled in going to Gonzaga University. But after going to Tony's event, it was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I'm like, people are dancing on chairs, and I saw Tony do interventions with people. And I was like, I got to learn from this man. And so I ended up doing a couple of semesters at Gonzaga, but opting out, and ended up traveling around the world with Tony. And then when he opened up the coaching department, I applied to become a coach, because I knew that was where I was supposed to be. It was one of those things where, Rudy knew he had to play for Notre Dame football. I knew I had to be a coach. It was just one of those things that I knew. But here's where assessments came in, is that Mandy was, when I applied to be a Tony coach, I was 21 years old, and I was really insecure. I didn't know who I was, but I was hungry and I was brave. That's what I had going for me. And before I applied to Tony's coaching department, I was working on his sales team doing admin support. And Sarah, you do not want Mandy doing Tony's admin.
I'm dying.
You don't want me doing anybody's admin. You don't. But I didn't know that about myself. And I don't know if you've ever had a job that you sucked at, like really bad.
Yes. Yes.
Like that is the recipe. You know how we talk about like building self-esteem and building confidence? That is the recipe for the opposite. That's the recipe for becoming insecure. And I was just beating myself up and, wondering, like, I was really beginning to wonder, am I dumb? Like, what are my gifts? And it wasn't until I applied to become a coach, we had to take the DISC assessment. And Tony had a man by the name of Robert Alderman come in and he trained us on the disc. And this man was intimidating. Like imagine Tommy Lee Jones teaching the disc. Like he was, and he was intimidating. And I remember he looked over my disc and he was ripping people's reports apart. Like he was telling people who he didn't think could make a good coach. He was telling them what he was concerned about and what they needed to work on. And I was like, oh, I was so scared. I wasn't even trying to be funny, but it was a moment during the training. Cause this was before like cell phones and technology. We had our disc report like printed out on pieces of paper. And I remember when it was my turn to give Robert my results, like I went up and I bowed and I like handed it to him like this.
Oh my gosh.
Laughing because, and I did it just because I was nervous and I didn't want to make eye contact with him. I wasn't even trying to be funny. But Robert looked at my disc results and he looked at me and he looked at my disc results and he said, "You'd make a great coach." And I was like, oh my gosh. Like I felt like I got knighted. I was like, oh. And in my knee-jerk reaction, I just had to ask him because it was like, how did he know that? And I said, why was I so bad at admin? Like I had to know, like, how does this man know?
Interesting.
How does he know me more than I know myself by some like stupid numbers on a bar graph? Like, and he started to laugh, like this very serious man started to laugh when I asked him why I was so bad at admin. He says, "You would be terrible at admin." And I said, I was
terrible.
That moment forth, I was like, I'm going to geek out. I am going to find out how to do what this man did because I was making it mean that I was dumb, that I was worthless, that, all this false beliefs that weren't true. I was like making myself feel like crap and crying. And I didn't have to go through that unnecessary suffering if I just knew myself. And so and that was just one assessment.
One assessment and a confirmation, like an unexpected confirmation from a human that you had some sort of trust in because Tony brought him to the table, right? Yeah. And so what's interesting to me is we often get put in those positions of, I'm really bad at admin. And so I'm going to hustle to become an admin and to figure this out. And so isn't that part of the complexity of personality is at what point is it, this is just who I am and I'm not going to apologize for it versus here's who I want to be or who I think I should be? Like, how do you help people navigate that?
Oh, such a beautiful question. Because it really is the biggest objection I get from people when they, about taking assessments is, I don't want to be put into a box.
Amen.
Right?
Preaching the choir.
Yes. Right. And what I say is, you're already in one. You're already in one. If you don't know who you are, you're already in one. Like I was in one when I thought I was dumb. When I thought I was in a terrible box. When you become aware more of who you are, you're actually coming out of the box. And it's not necessarily identifying with the assessment. It's realizing, oh, these are my superpowers and understanding that we have, my dad loved old Clint Eastwood movies. You know that line, man's got to know his limitations.
Yes.
It's we are in human bodies and we're playing these avatars. Have you ever seen the movie Jumanji?
Yes.
When they have the screens pop down and it shows these are your superpowers and this is your kryptonite. And so you're playing the avatar of Sarah. I'm playing the avatar of Mandy. And Sarah has superpowers and strengths that Mandy doesn't have. Mandy has superpowers and strengths that Sarah doesn't have. And it's about oh, this is why I'm here. Because we're here for this finite period of time. And it's about just embracing that. And what I've found and what I've discovered for myself and clients and friends and family is that the more we're in alignment with that, we feel good. It's really that simple. Like we feel like there's a peace, there's a groundedness, there's a sense of feeling free that we have when we're in alignment. And when we're not in alignment, that's when we have that agitation. If that makes
Interesting. And every listener could show up here and have this honor of sitting across from Mandy and say, I have had moments of feeling aligned. I know when I'm doing XYZ, it flows. And there's so many words, that you can use to describe that kind of alignment. Do you find with a lot of your clients that they are regularly trying to fight against who they really are because they believe something different is required to achieve what they want to achieve?
especially women. And it's because we minimize it. We take it for granted. Your greatest superpowers come so easily. Elton John, did you know that Elton John has written, like, Bernie wrote poems that he gave to Elton John, and within 10 to 15 minutes tops, Elton John put music to those poems that became the greatest hits. 10 to 15 minutes tops. Yeah. And Elton John has no idea why he's able to do that. He can't teach anyone else. Like, he's just able to do that. Imagine if he didn't share that with the world. We wouldn't have Tiny Dancer. We wouldn't have some of the most beautiful songs. Like, I love Elton John, right? So we have some of these incredible gifts and strengths. And I find, especially with women, we tend to minimize them because we've not been celebrated for them, and they've been overlooked by the people that have been around us and ourselves. And so we really don't realize the value. It's almost like we have a trust fund and we don't believe that we have a trust fund.
Oh, and we all want a trust fund. We all want one, but we again think it's not in the cards. And what would you say have been some of the, we got to put a negative spin on this for a hot second. What have been some of the big disservices that the business world has done to women specifically?
The biggest disservice, I would say, is really putting the expectations and pressure on, you know how there's wake up at 5 a.m. and do a cold plunge, and I'm going to do this, and the pressure of like this is, you're going to do your morning rituals, and boom, 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 right? Men's hormonal rhythm is vastly different than a woman's. And we are creators. Like, we literally, what's the difference between a man and a woman? Just like the main difference, right?
Women can have babies.
We can have babies. And so Einstein said that imagination is more important than knowledge, right? And so we as women, we have access as creators, we have access to an intuition and an imagination that is so powerful. Men still can access it, but we have more of that direct line, and that requires more downtime. That requires more going within. That requires more of that space and nature and being able to slow down and accessing that other realm of imagination. And so I would say the biggest disservice is that focus of the external, that it's easier for men to do. That makes sense.
And it unlocks something in men. It actually works for men, whereas women, it restricts us and it dampens our superpowers and doesn't allow us to unlock what's really there.
Yes.
And it's interesting to watch you specifically. You are such a hero of mine. And even before we recorded, you were like, Sarah, I like to be in the background. Like, I'm kind of a background person, right? And I'm kind of not, right? I'm kind of loud and I'm kind of outspoken. And we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in a minute. But it's interesting that sometimes I look at you and the notches on your belt of the successes. And I mean, you just crushed a 43% conversion webinar with Russell Brunson like a week ago, right? Like, there are so many successes that we could sit here and line up. And part of me would say someone who has a superpower in the background could not accomplish that.
Mm.
right? Because we hear attractive character and we hear Tony Robbins is dynamic and engaging, and like all these old men, like I wouldn't listen to their tapes or whatever. So like, how do you reconcile that in your mind? Because aren't certain things required in order to make a business successful and explode? Like, talk me through it.
Yes. So it's really interesting. Someone like myself with my personality, I know that I would not be where I'm at. Like this book, I'm really proud of it, Understanding Personality. I would not have this book. I would not have the connections I have. I would not be where I'm at had I not have my one friendship with a man by the name of Russell Brunson. Like he lifted me up. He has opened so many doors. You know, it's not the what, it's the who. And so because of who I am and because of, so it's like, you know, the story of P.T. Barnum and the opera singer.
Yes.
Remember when she like broke off and was like, I'm going to do it myself. Right. And then she bombed because she wasn't P.T. Barnum. So if I were to relate to anything, like I know where, like, because of Russell, I'm able to put my energy towards what I really love doing, which is working with people on a very deep level, one-on-one. If I had to put myself out and be really loud in the marketplace, which now I'm sharing about understanding personality and doing that, which I'm so happy to do. But if I had to do that to get to where I'm at, then I wouldn't have the richness of the wisdom that I have and the case studies that I had. So I have to acknowledge and thank someone like Russell, who's given me such an incredible gift of being able to be myself. And I thank you for acknowledging those achievements. And I wouldn't have been able to do it without that help and support. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And it's actually a completely different narrative on the who, not how, to me. I think we're often fed the idea that the who, not how, the brilliant concept, is centered around how do I get there faster? How do I get there more effectively? Instead of looking at it as who is actually the right who to be a companion with. Like what fills in the gaps there, like that just feels steadier to me in my soul when you describe it that way.
Yeah, you know, you might laugh, but I actually use these in my coaching sessions when I'm explaining something to clients. Like I use animal, like figure, like this is a lion, and you know, if you've got a personality of a lion, then that's great. But like, what if like I have the personality of a golden retriever? I'm not going to be a lion. I just need to embrace being a golden retriever, right? And so it's like, but if you've got to get something done that only a lion can get done, then you need to partner yourself with a lion, right? And so it's like one of the things that assessment, what I see that's happened a lot with people who have like a personality like myself, is they try and be someone that they're not.
Yes, because they believe it's required.
Yes, and they keep paying all this money and they keep giving all this power away, and then they beat themselves up that they're not that way. When if they just chilled out and they embraced, oh yeah, cool, I'm a golden retriever. I just need to partner with someone who needs a golden retriever and value that. And then life, it flows. But there's a lot of ignorance about it. And that's the box that they're in. And that's why I always say, like, there's no assessment on planet Earth that'll show me the complexity of your soul, the depths and the mystery of who we are. They're simply a tool. They're a puzzle piece. Yeah. But they're a powerful puzzle piece to awaken. Oh, no wonder I struggled with this. No wonder I really love this. No wonder this gives me energy. No wonder this drains me.
I'm like, what is it like to sit in a room with you and actually have this figured out, right? This is amazing. And one of the things, and as I promised our listeners before, this is going to be a very different type of interview, because Mandy was very kind in saying, I will come on the podcast and you have to fill out these assessments. And I was like, anything for Mandy, right? That was my feeling. Anything for Mandy, right? Very transparently, I tend to buck personality things in general
Really?
I feel like many of them are, this is who you are, and it's just okay to be that way, and you should never change. And some of them that I've taken have pointed me as being aggressive or rude or something like that. And I'm like, it is not okay to be rude. Right. And so do not tell me I am rude. Right. And so I tend to buck those kinds of things. But it was very exciting to be able to say, okay, here's all my personality assessments. I did them for you. I handed them to you. And to be able to say, this will be interesting to see what someone I actually know, like, and trust has to say about it, who has my vested interest here. And so if you're open to it, I would love to see what it's like to look at an assessment, to be an entrepreneur, to be a female, and to actually experience, who am I?
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. Well, first off, like I am honored. It's very vulnerable to share your assessment results. And I want to say that I agree with you. I don't like it when people use it as like, oh, I'm just a high dominant personality, so I'm just going to be a jerk. Like, that's okay, right? It's, I'm a really high I as well. That doesn't mean that I can just say, oh, I'm just going to be a people pleaser. No, I've worked really hard on myself to have boundaries. There's always growth, there's always work. So, in fact, the personality assessments have made me a better coach because I can see, it's almost like a blood test when you go to the doctor. So it's like, I can see, oh, this is where we need to work. This is where your work is, without having to have like 6 months of coaching sessions. We could like scuba dive. We can go like, we could dive deep and go right to where, this is where the best focus of our time needs to be.
Incredible. And people just never trust or take time to establish the baseline. Like, what are we starting with? Right. Yeah. And then they would need a coach or a mentor with their best interest in mind to be able to help them navigate. Okay, these are things this is where we start. Yes. Here's your leverage point. Like, oh, I'm stoked. How does this go? How do we do this?
Okay.
So for those of you listening on the podcast, you can go to the YouTubes. I just dated myself. You can go to YouTube and you can look at the assessment as she walks through it, because we're just going to get raw and real here. Let's rock and roll.
I love it. And then when I like scroll, do you still see me scrolling?
I see you scrolling. Yep.
It switches.
Yes. I'm seeing utility right now.
Okay. Yeah. Fun. Okay. So I know I'm going to assume your listeners are new to all of it. Are you familiar with DISC?
No.
Okay. So I'm going to give like the bada bing, bada boom version of these, and I'll probably bounce around. Before I start off, first off, I love your picture. That's an adorable picture. Do you have is there anything going on in your world right now, or anything with yourself that you would like for me to focus on? Or do you want me just to go over and do like a general reading?
I would say things that come up for me a lot is a battle in my own. I have two things: a battle in my own mind about what kind of woman I am okay to be. I'm in a very male-dominated field, right? And learn from some of the best minds, Russell included, of men I deeply respect. And I also don't want to be a man, right? I want to honor and superpower my gifts as a woman. Mm-hmm. And I often struggle to know what kinds of things I can amplify to remain who I am in that realm. The second is centered around my mindset around money. I went to Mexico to Mastermind in Paradise a couple of weeks ago, and hello, listeners, you're all going to unsubscribe. But when I was looking at some of the results and the speed in which people were accomplishing things, I was like, okay, people dumber than me are absolutely crushing it, right? I don't know how else to say it, but I was like, why can I not figure this out, this next phase? Why can't I unlock this? And then I start to go into a religious theme. I'm incredibly religious. I'm a Mormon, member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I'm like, maybe I'm just not meant to have it. Maybe I just, maybe it's not meant for me. Maybe there's a ceiling there, and just God wouldn't trust me with it. And it would change me to be a person I'm not proud of, or maybe I'm just being protected from who I would become if I were to be given those things that those revenue goals that I'm aiming for in the business and impact and stuff. So those are two things that are very present for me is I want to be genuine. And I also want to do what God wants me to do. And is he okay with the things that I am pursuing?
Oh my gosh, you just give me chills. You are so beautifully authentic and vulnerable. I love you. Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing that. That was so beautiful. So you are really, you have the perfect personality combination to move very quickly. And I'll share with you first what I see as like your strengths and your superpower, and I'll go along and I'll share with you where you might get what might slow you down and where you might need help and support. Because one of the things that I have witnessed with Russell and people in Inner Circle and Atlas and all of it is they have help. They have help. They have a team. But you have, there's a common thread of traits and personality that I have witnessed that is required to really be successful in business. And the good news is you have a lot of that, Sarah. So what's interesting is if I was privately coaching you, I'd want to dive deeper on this is look at, so the disc is how you behave. It's how you communicate. And you're a high DI. So you're an 88, 86. And so the colors are what's natural. The gray is what's adapted. So this tells me, look at, you go from an 88 natural D to a 37. Okay. So that tells me that Sarah is under stress. Anytime there's more than a 25 point disparity, that signifies stress. You're beautifully dominant. So you mentioned being in like a male dominated field and like being a woman and whatnot. This is Mandy guessing. Okay. I don't know if this is true or not, but my guess is that you might be lowering your D, so dominance is like, they're driven by anger and they're intense. And this is where you said like, you didn't like assessments because people thought like, oh, you're rude. D's can come across rude. They can't, because they're blunt, they're direct. They'll tell you if you have bad breath. They'll command you to do things. They're the boss. They're the chief. They're the captain. And you have to have a driver in your business. I'm a lower D. Russell is a 99 D. Russell and I talk about a natural path that we love here in Idaho. And he's really good at what he does, but he's a low D. And Russell and I talk about how he's never going to get his business like as booming as it can because he's a low D and he doesn't have a high D on his staff. Like this is like your fire, your spirit. So something that I would encourage you to look at is like, what is, your fire, your spirit is like your truth. It's like speaking your truth. And so making sure that you're in a space where you feel safe to speak your truth. And the thing about being a high dominant woman that I found is that you will repel people without a doubt. Without a doubt, you will. But you'll also magnetize people. And so it's really getting comfortable with that, with knowing that you're going to repel people and magnetize people. Now I'm going to bounce around a little bit, but you're also an Enneagram 3. And Enneagram 3s, Russell's an Enneagram 3. A lot of people in Inner Circle are Enneagram 3s. You really care about image and what people look at you as successful. And that's why you got this inner tom-tom as gotta do more, gotta be more, gotta do more, gotta be more. And that's why at Mexico, you saw other people that you were like, really? They like, seriously? Come on, And that's like that that Enneagram 3, where Enneagram 3s were taught that you get love by achievement. And it's so important that you are aware that your worth is not in your success, but in who you are. And those are words that are easy for me to say, and you could hear it and you could nod, but your wiring is so rooted in that gotta do more, gotta be more, gotta do more, gotta be more. And so for you, it's already so plain as day to me is for you to set yourself up to be okay to upset and repel some people. So right when I shared that, I'm curious how you respond.
I feel completely exposed, right? And that's why I'm here, right? This has to happen because you're someone I trust to tell me these things. I'm a third child, right? And so I have two sisters. They are my dearest friends. I have three sisters, but I'm the third. And they are all my dearest friends. And my older two sisters were incredibly successful and smart and served in, religious capacities that I admired and were camp counselors for organizations and just very impressive. And I was constantly trying to fight to be seen as a third child. It was like, I'm going to be the one kid that goes away to college. I'm going to be the one kid that goes on a mission for my church just to try and be like, hello, I'm making a mark here. And I've always been called the maverick in my family. And I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know how I feel about being a maverick if my intentions are to be visible and to be acknowledged and to be an achiever or something like that. So I'm uncomfortable with especially that element is what are my intentions really on why I'm doing, like, should I go on a mission and leave my family just so I can look cool to other people? Like, that's a terrible intention, Mandy. That's a terrible intention. So that comes up for me. As far as the repelling thing, I'm doing better at that. If you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. I'm doing better, but I will not do it in a way where I'm a jerk. I just won't do it. That's my line.
Yeah.
I won't stand for things.
Well, and I know you won't, not because I'm not just saying that to be nice, because you got that beautiful high eye. Look at that. 86. That eye softens you. That eye is what makes you funny. That eye is what makes you playful. That eye is what makes you likable. So that's where, you can tell someone that they have bad breath and make them laugh at the same time, And so this is what makes you very charismatic. Very charismatic. And you're an ISFP. That's a fun personality. That's an adventure. That is like playful. When you're an Enneagram 3, it's like Enneagram 3s are charming. I mean, who doesn't look at Russell? He's a 3-wing 2, and you got that 2 that wants to help people. So it's like it is important. And I so appreciate you being open and vulnerable. I would say the biggest thing with 3s, and I thank you for having this conversation because a lot of 3s don't even like to have this conversation or even look at it, but is to slow down and ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Because a lot of 3s just go, and they'll accomplish. But I want to show you something that's really fascinating, as you see how it's pointed to a 9 and pointed to a 6. Yeah. So Enneagram's one of my favorites to work with clients on because it goes so deep and it goes into all of us have this core wound, every single one of us. So your superpowers is a 3. Like whenever I have a 3 as a client and they're like, Mandy, help me be more motivated. I'm like, you don't need that. Like, coaching a 3 on motivation is like coaching a giraffe on being tall. Like you're already got it. Like you are there. You have it almost too much because it's on high octane. What 3s actually need the most support on is to slow down and go inside and go, who am I? Who am I really? Because you've been so conditioned on the external and looking good. And like you said, with being the third child and like, see me, I love your self-awareness on that. And so you're a 3-wing 2, which the 2 is like the helper, and this is what makes you likable and more compassionate and thinking of others. Because the 3 is really competitive and can be sometimes ruthless. Like, let's go, let's do this.
Sure.
What your work is to also lean on the 4. And the 4 is the individualist. And the 4, and whenever I usually talk to a 3-wing 2 and I tell them about the 4, they're like, the 4 is the feeler. And the 4 is asking the questions of who am I and why am I here and what do I really want? Like, is it the money? Is it that? Like, why? Why do I want that? What's that going to give me? And so it's asking those deep questions, because here's my favorite part, Sarah, of the Enneagram is when you shine, you're actually about the people. You're actually the best. Do you know what you're the best at when you are super healthy? You're the best at relationships.
Wow. Really? Which is my great fear that I won't be good at because I'm so aggressive and so competitive and so driven that I don't want to sacrifice relationships in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's like all of us. It's so interesting. I say that planet Earth is where we all become superheroes, and we're required to face our greatest fear. Yeah. And the greatest fear of an Enneagram 3 is to appear worthless. It's to appear like a failure. And so facing that fear, once you face that fear, like when I got to, know Russell before the wonderful FTC came in and he had to let go of 80 employees like overnight. And then he had to do the lean mean team. And so I got to witness Russell face his greatest fear. And I got to see the man who he became, and it was so beautiful. And the humility that he still carries with him today. And it's why he's able to lift so many people up. It's why he's so forgiving, and it's why he's able to collaborate with so many people, is because the 6 is the loyalist. And so you have that ability to be one of the best when it comes to relationships because you don't have the baggage of the 6. You got the baggage of the 3 because you are a 3. Like, we all have the baggage of the Enneagram that we are.
Right.
And so this is why you have that. And so how do you get there is you lean more on your 4. So like the homework assignment I would give someone like you is to ask yourself, like, what do I really want? What do I really care about? Like, who's Sarah? What really fires me up? What am I, like when you went to Mexico and you started to compare yourself to others, right? Which is totally human, totally normal. Brene Brown talks about it. It's in our DNA. Like, all of us do it. It's a knee-jerk reaction. We can't say, don't compare. And it's like, okay, like it's not going to happen, right? We're going to compare. But to be able to have a contemplation, meditation practice, something like that, where you slow down and be able to check in with Sarah and go, is this what I really want? Or is this what I think I should want to be, right?
And I'm just fascinated by that approach of that the answer for a 3 is to slow down. That is hysterical to me. There is humor in that to me, right? Which is great. And one of the things you mentioned is a 3 needs to face their greatest fear, right? I would love to not be called out by the FTC. Bless your heart, Russell, every day, right? How do you guide people to face a fear?
Such a good question. It's to be aware of your shadow. Every light has a shadow. And if you're not conscious, most people live their life going, oh, my shadow, I'm running. Like, that's, most people are living that way. They're just constantly running from their shadow. And eventually, the law of nature, they're going to have to face it. There's just no way around it. I'm a 9. And so my greatest fear is conflict and loss of separation. I can fail and I could be like, big whoop. Like, I filed bankruptcy at 23, big whoop. I don't like it. I don't enjoy it, but it's not my greatest fear. Having a conflict and losing someone in my life, oh, wow. When I had to ask my husband to leave, I told my niece Kendall, I would rather eat a plate full of live bugs than to do that. Like, that was the hardest thing I ever had to do. And so, but I had to face it because I had been running from my shadow. I had been running. I had avoided so much conflict. So that was me. So I look at like, if we don't face it, eventually it's going to catch up.
Hmm.
And so it's like for you, you don't have to wait. Good news. You don't have to wait for the FTC you don't have to have something horrific happen. I don't believe in that. I don't believe that you've got to have like a bottom, right? You don't have to have that. Instead, you can be more proactive. So even just us having this conversation and you being open-minded and curious. So for you, it's you having some sort of ritual or practice where you go inside, Sarah, because this is what threes don't do.
Amen. I go inside everyone else.
Yes.
I love my podcast. I will ask you all the questions, right? Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let me follow up then with a question in regards to something that you said, that you don't believe that like the universe will right your fear, like that the FTC has to come in, or that a marriage has to end, or whatever that may be, that you don't necessarily invite those things by not addressing it. So do you believe in, if you ignore these parts of you, you will invite negative experiences into your life? If you ignore your shadow, if you ignore personal work, if you ignore these conversations with yourself, that you will invite pain into your life.
See, now I like how you reframed it to pain. Because I wouldn't say, it's really interesting because I hesitate to call anything negative.
Yeah.
Because I can now say I've never been happier in my life, like genuinely, truly happy and fulfilled. And I thank that Mandy who had so much courage to do that, because now I'm in a relationship where I'm compatible and my needs are being met. And I'm so like really, truly fulfilled and happy. And was that experience hard? Yes. Would I want to go through it? Not really. But would I? Yes. So to answer your question, there's a beautiful quote by Buddha where he says that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. And I believe that the more conscious and aware we become about who we are and what we need, there's just a lot less suffering. Life, we're still going to have pain. We're still going to have that. We're on planet Earth. We're not in the Garden of Eden, but it's so much less suffering. And that's what I've experienced. And that's where I find that when you become more aware, when I became more aware, wow, it's like I feel like I've lived most of my life wearing, you ever see those people like running with like a weight vest? And you're like, wow, you go, man, you go. Like that's commitment. I'm not even running and you're running with a weight vest.
Amen.
Right? But I felt like, Sarah, I felt like I was like, had a weight vest on with like weight things and like weight ankles. And then I was able to take it all off. And I'm like, oh, this feels so much better. This feels just lighter. I feel so much lighter because now I'm aware of, oh, okay, this is something that I'm always going to need to work on. Like it's still challenging for me to say no. It's still challenging for me to set boundaries. Like it's still uncomfortable. I'm not like, so is it for me? No, I'm just really, really, really aware of it. And I do it. And because I know the cost and the price if I don't. Like I know if you started a meditation or contemplation practice, I know for you, it would be really challenging. I know it would be really challenging. For me as a 9, I'd be like, it's so easy because that's not my wound. That's your wound. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And let me dig even deeper with you. There's a famous song, More Money, More Problems, right? All right. More money, more problems. From a religious sphere, it's like, okay, I think religion can have an impact on when people feel like, oh, my path or my life is predetermined, right? Like God already knows where I'm heading. And so I'm just going to try and stay in line with that and like enjoy the ride kind of a thing. And that's where I struggle personally is where does this role of like choice and agency come in? Because it's tempting to say, if I go after the financial, for me specifically, if I go after the financial goals, more problems are going to arise. And so why would I go all in? Like, no wonder I'm still smarter in the room, but still not accomplishing it. Right. Like, it's like I feel stuck here because I fear what that Sarah will be.
Oh,
And and if
oh,
it impacts those I love, or I mean, we're going here. But I remember I was a really good funnel hacker after my very first funnel hacking live, right? I was a really good funnel hacker. And I was like, I'm going to funnel hack every single person that spoke on stage that year because that's where I want to be. That's where I want to be. So, like, what are the patterns? How did they get there? What are they doing? What are they? So I was like, I'm going to be such a good student, right? And I go and do it. And I saw broken marriages, right? I saw incredibly divisive, hateful speech. I'm just being honest, right? Like
yeah.
all of this. And so all of a sudden that desire to achieve and that
Mm.
desire to be competitive and get on that stage, I was like, but is that the price? If that's the price, no. If that's the price, no. You know? And so how does, I mean, I'm like trying to wrap this in a bow, this complex idea of like when religion comes in and says your path is already determined, but then you've got these innate desires that are pushing you. How do you know what to listen to when it seems like the price is too great or the price is already decided?
Oh, so beautiful, so beautiful. So, first, thank you for sharing that with me. You know, what pops up for me is one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite movies is at the very end, he's looking at Jenny's grave and he says, Jenny, I don't know if it's free will or if it's up to us. Well, I think it's a little bit of both. No, I think it's like, in India, they call it your dharma. Like I got kicked out of choir because apparently I'm tone deaf. Apparently, Sarah, I was like desperado, so like so I'm not supposed to be singing like Celine Dion, okay? So that's not part of my dharma. But good news is I've never had the desire to be a singer.
Right.
It was not in my heart. You clearly have. I love what Ralph Waldo Emerson says, there's nothing capricious in nature. You would not be given the desire if you didn't have the capability. And something that I firmly believe is like, I'm going to go to your values here. Your values are so beautiful. Your values are what drive you. And it's interesting. So, we need to like probably change the words like and change how this is laid out. But you know how knowledge is number one here, but it's ranked, if the score is the lowest, it's ranked number one. This doesn't mean that Sarah doesn't like to learn. It's actually that it's because you're actually an intellectual rebel in that you know that there are many ways to do something and there are many ways to learn, and you actually enjoy growing through experience.
Yeah.
And you value that. You value life experiences. And your value of utility at 75, that is ROI, baby. People, whatever you value, you tend to be good at. It tends to be part of your superpowers. And I'm going to pop over here to your strengths. Sarah, your number one strength is belief, baby, belief. Like you know how Russell talks about leading a movement?
Right.
If anybody can lead a movement, it is you. Holy cow. Like belief, significance, command, communication, futuristic. Okay, I just gotta pour some energy into this. Like this is so for you, like I love your story and what you shared about like funnel hacking all the speakers and then going, is this the price? Maybe like this is like you're living your hero's two journeys because you have the most beautiful, perfect, powerful top 5 strengths to be a movement leader. Because belief is, these are the people who are devoted. You know, there's a difference between commitment and devotion. You know, people who are committed are they'll overcome every obstacle, right? Like you got to have commitment. There's an obstacle, you'll overcome it. There's an obstacle, you overcome it. It's great. They'll stay in the marriage no matter how hard it is. They're committed. But there's another level, and the other level is devotion. Devotion is commitment gone mad. Devotion is someone who's devoted, and you don't really see people being devoted anymore, especially like in the West. You just don't. It's kind of like a lost characteristic. But you with that number one, it's like your number one strength is really important to look at. So as what I do with my clients is I would have you do this is like YouTube, belief, strengths finder, and just like learn about that because it's your number one. And it's so important that you have that devotion and that conviction in what you're doing as a business owner. And you do that like, oh my gosh. So you could lead people to do and believe anything because significance, people who have significance have an air of confidence about them. And every light has a shadow. People with significance can have other people not feel like they can speak up because they're like, oh, Sarah knows better than I do. So just keep that in mind with like your team and everything. But here's what's beautiful about you is that people are going to innately trust you with belief and significance. Oh my gosh. Like you're the type of person who could convince people that the earth is flat. Like that is like you have that ability to take an argument that someone thinks is just ridiculous and then within a certain time period have them go, oh, maybe she's right. Like that is your gift. And so if you just decide with your values of utility and then you have leadership where you feel responsible, where that leadership is you've got to be in charge. And it's not just about power, it's also about responsibility. And again, it's how you're seen, it's how you're looked at. And that's not a bad thing. It's part of how you're designed. It's part of who you are. I would encourage you to embrace it. It's just balancing it out with you having some of that quiet solitude time of going within to make sure you're happy. Because we're all getting fed by Sarah. We're all loving Sarah's light. We're all loving Sarah kicking butt. Your family, your friends are all benefiting from Sarah being successful. There are people, trust me, benefiting from you being who you are. You going within is like making sure that you're happy. So when you take your last breath, you're like, yeah, I lived. This was a great life. So does that make sense?
It makes total sense. And it's so eye-opening to recognize both can be true, that other people can benefit, because that matters a lot to me, that like my kids and my spouse and the pews I sit in and like all of those people benefit from the things that I am trying to do and the light I'm trying to share. And it doesn't have to come to the cost of me being drained or me being resentful or me being burned out or me being lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, no, like you are really, really powerful. Like you are meant to be an influencer because so you see how it's executing, influencing, relationship, and strategic, like those 4 different categories. Like you need to be seen and you need to be influencing. So significance is you have an air, like even if you have like a day where you're feeling like, bleh, trust me, you still have an air of confidence about you, or you're feeling like you don't look as good, or maybe bloated, or whatever it is, or like trust, like you still have an air of confidence about you. So just know, like, you can just rely on that. And then you have command, which command is a very masculine. So you talked about being a woman, and that it's one of the most masculine traits. And it's so funny because when Russell and I, for Inner Circle, and people like get up to share their business, and they have like 20 minutes or 30 minutes, Russell and I are like both really awkward when it's like, okay, it's time. And he had an assistant named Melanie that she had such a commanding presence that when Melanie would say, okay, you're out of time, Sarah, like everyone was just like so respectful of. And there was one time where Melanie wasn't there, and it was just Russell and I, and they did not listen to us. It was like, okay, Sarah, it's time. They're like, yeah, it's just Russell and Mandy.
I'm not done yet. Thank you.
Yeah. So I was like, people with command, you have this ability, like command's very low for me. You have this ability to command a room, to command a group, and it's a very beautiful, powerful strength to have. And it can come across intimidating to others. To others who don't know who they are, it can come across intimidating. And this may sound a little harsh, but I'm going to just say it. That's their stuff. That's their stuff. And it's just, you can be aware of it, and you could have compassion, but woman to woman, I don't want you to play smaller just because it's harder for others, right? It's like the people who are going to rise to be able to meet you, or the people who are meant to rise to meet you. The people who are going to be intimidated, that's their lesson. You're their teacher. That's just what it is. And so you owning that belief, and you having your vision, and you carrying that, that's what you're here to do. And you having that utility, we're the happiest when we perceive that we're meeting our values. So I can tell you right now, for you specifically, so your listeners, they would need to know what their values are. They need to know, like, whatever you value most, if you perceive that you're meeting it, you're happy. So if I was coaching you, your number, one of your top values being utility, ROI, baby, I would have you look at, okay, what are my financial goals? What do I care about? Why? And how do I know I'm winning? Because that is important to you. And there's no shame in that, because that is what lights you up. And to be able to give yourself permission of that. And there still might be some of that guilt and stuff. And like you said, some of the religion programming, but to know that you're able to donate more. I always say people who are high utility, who have shame about it, I have high impact and I'm lower utility. And I like to say, Russell Brunson has written more checks to OUR than Mandy Keene. Okay. So when we have these goggles on of like, oh, Mandy's better because she's high impact, and Russell, he's like, is it? Like, let's look at that. And I'm speaking out loud to that to challenge that hypnosis that we have. So you are meant to communicate. Your fourth strength is communication. Like, you're meant to lead. And then you got futuristic. So I'm curious, when I share all that, what comes up for you?
That none of it is bad and needs to be tamed.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I could leave the room right now and be like, oh, right. Yeah. That's the cycle I've never been able to make with personality assessments and these kinds of things. Is it was always meant to be a starting point of good, bad, weakness, strength, But when you start to talk about, here's how belief works towards the cause, here's how significant gets you where you want to be, here's how command helps Russell control the room and make sure people don't go over on their time, here's how communication inspires others, like futuristic, that is a completely different rewire for me. That none of this is bad, none of this is heavy or too heavy or out of balance, right? No. This is meant to be used and leveraged.
Yes. No, it's meant to be used and leveraged. And you're meant to be a leader. You're meant to be in charge. And without seeing all your 34 strengths. I love looking at all 34, but I can just tell you right now, with you being a high DI, a low SC, I know we didn't get into that, but I can tell with you being high utility, high DI, Enneagram 3, looking at your top 5, you need what I like to call hands-on keyboard people around you with like detailed executing techie, because ISFPs are also not very good with like technology, detail-oriented systems. You need to be like you're the movement leader. You need to be like the Martin Luther King Jr. It's like you need to be the one with the microphone as much as possible. And anything where you can make decisions and choices that set you up to create that is going to benefit the whole, the collective humanity. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Being able to tie it in, especially there at the end where this will help humanity, help soothe my soul that this is not a selfish endeavor.
No.
That this is actually for others, right?
Yes.
Because that matters so much to me.
Yes. It's like, again, if I were to bring up, like, is the lion selfish for wanting to be the lion? You know, for like, do you know that lions sleep 20 hours a day?
I want to be a lion.
And then they kick butt for 4, right? It's like, you know, and so it's like,
I want to be a lion.
right. So you're meant to, and I think that especially as a woman, Sarah, you do have, I really do feel for you. And I'm so glad that we had this conversation, because you are meant to lead, and you're meant to shine, and you're meant to be in charge, and you're meant to have other people serve and help you with your mission. It's like, if you look at nature, there's a queen bee. If you look at every like animal kingdom, there's a leader of the pack. Like, it's how you're designed. It's how you're made. If I were talking to somebody who had a different profile, I'd be saying something different. And it's what you want. Yes. It's like in your heart.
It's what I want, and something that is so beautiful here. Let me just fix my camera quick, because we had tech issues, people. Something you said really stuck with me, and I think this moves forward with like why you are here on earth, Mandy, and why you reached me so many years ago, was you really desire for people to feel happy, right? And we are so often fighting against the very things that will give us happiness, right? In my brain, being in the background, I could never be happy. I never could. And you are incredibly happy with, like you said, you are the happiest you have ever been, because you figured out sort of where your place is and your source of happiness. And I believe everybody's source of happiness is Jesus, first and foremost. But second, that your type of happiness is so individual. And don't let anyone else dictate what happiness is going to look like for you. Like, own that type of happiness. Holding a microphone and leading is a type of happiness, and like own that. And it just, the word that comes to my mind after sitting with you is, okay, I'm going to stop apologizing for those things that like feel so selfish, or those things that feel so off of what a woman should be, or a religious person should be, or something like that, and say, wait, this is actually the way in which I further God's work, and I bless my family's life and humanity. I'm in awe. I'm not very eloquent right now, because I'm just really blown away that you've brought it full circle for me.
Oh, you're very eloquent. Absolutely. I think you're very eloquent. And I'm curious, what is one of your dreams, if I may ask before we wrap up? Like, what is one of your visions, one of your dreams?
It's an ROI.
That's okay.
Shocking. It's a $10 million in revenue business. That's the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Never said it out loud. Said it in my journal a lot.
Nice.
But that's what we're building. Yeah. Why would that be the question you ask?
Because with someone with your belief, your ability to command, communicate, and futuristic, people who have futuristic always see a better tomorrow. And we need people like that right now. Hello. We really need, we're starving. We're starving for people like that right now. And I would say we're starving for women who have that right now.
Why do you think you have such a spot on in your heart for women specifically?
Because of my mom. Yeah. 100%.
Because of what she was able to do or what she could have done had she grown up in a different world? Like what element of your mom?
Because she didn't get the support that I wish she could have. And I feel that she sacrificed a lot for me. You know, I'm also the baby of the family.
Oh.
And you know, I'm very fortunate to still have my parents are still alive, but my mom has a lot of health issues, and she did real estate, and she hated real estate. She hated it, you know, and she was an artist, you know, she painted, and she didn't have the support system to follow her heart, and she didn't have whatever internal to like really be in alignment. And I look at like how now I can see with compassion what was really missing for her, and how it really is different for women. Like most of my life, Sarah, I was like, oh, it's not different. We're pretty much the same. And now I'm like, no, we're really not. And I'm not a feminist. Like I'm not extreme that way. I think there's beautiful things in everything. And I think that we had to, sometimes we have to swing the pendulum when we're unhealthy, right? And then we got to go back into the middle. But I believe that there's just been this attack on the mother, an attack on the feminine. And like, look at how we treat Mother Earth, right? And so it's just any way to, and you hurt the mother, you hurt men, because everyone was born out of a woman. Every single one of us born out of a woman. So if we help women, we help everybody.
And what do you really hope to help women do?
Love themselves.
And why don't we?
Because we have no idea how powerful we are. And we have no idea how beautiful we are. And we have no idea really who we are. We think that we're these bodies. We think that we are meant to look a certain way or act a certain way, and we're lost. And so we don't, you know, my boyfriend took prom pictures of my beautiful niece. She's 18 years old, and she had 3 of her friends with her, and they were beautiful. And my boyfriend's very complimentary, and he's got a loud, fun personality. And he's like, you guys are beautiful. And you could tell they did not believe it. You could tell, like, there's these 18-year-old girls, 17, 18-year-old girls, and you could tell they did not see it. And I was just like, I just want to shake them. You're so beautiful. And so I think of like all these young women and older women, and I look at like myself. You ever look at like pictures of yourself when you're younger, like, oh man, I remember that Sarah, and she had no idea, right? And so it's like, yeah, to really love themselves, because there's so many companies that are benefit from us not. So it's a rebellious act to love yourself.
Right. And in fact, most companies that target women, right, are centered around making women unhappy with who they are so that they can be the benefactors of trying to fix it for them. And I will never forget an interview I watched with Emma Thompson, the actress. I love her. And she got real snarky, and she was like, I have an idea. How about I sit here and spend the next 40 to 50 years, like changing my lips and fixing my hair and like hating my body and trying to fix my waist. And that sounds like just such a brilliant idea. And then she just rolls her eyes because someone had asked her about if she was afraid to age, kind of a thing, right? And so how are you going to do it? How are you going to reach women, Mandy?
Oh, such a beautiful question. Thank you for asking that. Well, it's really, when you said stop apologizing, I'm actually writing a book right now for women, and it's called Not Sorry. And yeah.
I'll be your first buyer. I'm your first buyer. Copy number 1.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. And it's all about living from your heart with unapologetic authenticity and sharing how to do that. And I talk about assessments in that, and I talk about like using that as a tool to really tap into. It's giving us permission to, like you said, I love how you put it. I think you were really articulate. Like, you have communication as one of your strengths, Sarah. So it's why you're really good at interviewing people, when you said that it's to stop apologizing and finding our own individual way, because we're all so unique. No one knows what they're doing, by the way. Like, no one does.
Quote of the day. But you kind of do. You kind of know what you're doing, right?
I'm making it up as I go. Like, come on. Like, I was like, I got the 4 steps. I got this. But like, no one knows what they're doing. So it's like, we just got to be true to ourselves.
Oh, yeah. So let me ask you a question you may not be able to answer in the time we have left, but how does a woman know that she knows who she is?
You know how most women will tell you, if she wants to be swept off her feet, right? Like, what do you got to do to sweep a woman off her feet, right? You got to date her, right? You got to spend time with her. So one of the things that I started doing after my divorce was so uncomfortable, and then it turned into my favorite thing, is mirror work. And I would light some candles and I look at myself in the mirror and I spend time with Mandy. Because like, when we get ready in the morning, we put our makeup on, it's like we're unconscious. It's just like, that doesn't count.
There you go. Yeah.
Not being present. But I spend time with myself. And so it's to be with yourself. Like, when was the last time like you looked into your own eyes and you just sat with yourself for that intention only? And that was a game changer. And I noticed that I really wanted to feel beautiful. I wanted to feel loved. And so I started to give it to myself. I started to say it to myself. And when I first started saying it, I didn't believe it. And that's very common. And so it took time, but then it's like building that trust with a wounded child. And through that time, I started to then really look forward to it. And now it's like, if I don't get that time alone, I start to like get a little agitated. It's like, I need that time alone. And so that's what worked for me. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but whether it's mirror work or taking yourself out on a walk or being able to have that quality alone time, but it's quality, and really not being afraid to be alone. I was terrified of being alone after my birth, terrified. And so it's that, because when we get to the point, Sarah, I really felt like I was honoring my ancestors when I realized, oh my gosh, I'm a woman who I didn't have to have children. I love being an auntie. And I'm like, thank you, women. Like, I thought about all these women who sacrificed before me and who like, wow, I'm in this beautiful home. I get to do what I love. I have this beautiful golden retriever. That's Whiskey, my golden retriever, And I'm like, I have such a great life. And I have this luxury. It's a luxury where I get to have this experience of loving Mandy. I'm like, wow, this is such an honor. How many people on planet Earth, how many women on planet Earth get this time in this space? And so it's making and taking that time, if you can, as much as possible.
And I'm going to repeat something you said. How many women on Earth also consider being with themselves an honor? How many of us honestly sit with ourselves and say, this has been an honor?
Right.
To be here. Like, that is tender for me. Beautifully tender. It's an honor to be with self. And in a world of AirPods and constant noise and the ability to stream, all those things, we have a real opportunity to recapture that ability to be with ourselves. Start with it messy and then watch it progress from there. Mandy, you're a genius. This has been such an honor.
Oh, Sarah, you're a blast. I knew I was going to have fun with you today. You're such a gift. You're such a gift to this world. Any way I can support you, I am a huge fan.
Oh, bless you. Bless you. Thank you so much. And in traditional unreasonable autonomy fashion, I just have two final questions for you.
Yes.
Before we end this interview. One is rapid fire. The other one, you can answer with your heart. The first one is, besides your own book and your book coming out, what is a book you believe every entrepreneur should read?
The Art of Contemplation by Richard Rudd.
Oh, that was easy. Nice job.
Yes.
Most people are like, oh my gosh, let me look. And yeah, you know. Okay, we'll link it in the comments below. And for many of you that are like jealous of the fact that I got to take all those personality tests, if you go to understandingpersonality.com, it's in the show notes. You can go and experience that same thing. So everybody go there. My second question for you is, at the end of your life, I want you to think about your sweet niece. What do you hope she says about you?
That I inspired her to live.
That would be a life worth living right there.
Yes, 100%. What a beautiful question. Thank you. You're magic. You are magic.
You are. I receive it, Mandy. I receive it. Thank you so much for being so willing to go raw and real with me directly, but also showing people the pathways of why understanding who we are, how we tick, how all the qualities that we have are good if we can learn to frame them and understand them. It has just been invaluable. So thank you again so much for being here, the amazing Mandy Keene.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you for listening to the Unreasonable Autonomy podcast. If you loved this episode, my guests and I would love to hear about it. Go to the show notes to reach out and let me know what resonated with you or what topics or guests you want to hear in the future. I am here to create for you. Look, I deeply admire your commitment to pushing boundaries and going after an unreasonable life. Keep dreaming big, taking bold steps, and expecting the unreasonable. For more, go to the show notes to dive deeper into the conversations that will keep you going. Thanks for being here.